Smart strategy, real conversations, bigger margins. This is Chasing the Margin podcast.
Welcome back to Chasing the Margin. Today we have Mr. Brian Nwannunu. So Brian, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's good to be on.
I think I said that right. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. Good deal. Well, Brian, like you and I were chatting about before the podcast started, you're kind of in a unique space with several different layers with what you have going on. So tell us about who you are, what you have going on, and why you're on the podcast.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for having me. I'm glad we got a chance to make this happen. We've been trying to, and it worked out for sure. Like you said, I'm Dr. Brian Nwannunu from Dallas. I'm an orthopedic surgeon here. I'm unique in the fact that I've always been in the kind of entrepreneurial space, and medicine in general tends to be more of the W-2 hospital employed kind of side of things, but I went the private practice route. Since I was young, I loved being entrepreneurial, being in charge of things, kind of going out and doing my own thing. And with private practice, it affords that opportunity. And so here in Dallas, I do hip and knee replacements. I also do trauma orthopedic surgery, which are more like car accidents, falls, gunshot wounds, things of that nature. And orthopedic surgery as itself is a very, very, very successful field, but medicine is completely different when you take the business aspect into account. And so there's other what we call ancillaries. There's things like surgery centers that you can invest into. There's things like DME or medical equipment. There's physical therapy. There's a lab. So when you're on the private side of things, you can kind of put your hands in those if you want. But then you also have to pay attention to everything because then it's the business side. So I've kind of mirrored my practice in a hybrid of doing the surgeries and still doing the business side of things as a part owner of multiple surgery centers and things of that nature.
Yeah. We're both licensed, and there's a lot of regulation with my license and with your license, but yours even more so because we always kind of joke about it at the office that, hey, at the end of the day, if a client gets upset, it's just taxes, like nobody's dying. But in your field, it's somebody could be actually dying if things are not done correctly. So I think that, trying to get into the business space while also trying to be a successful surgeon is extremely interesting because I would assume that you have a tug and a pull on certain decisions that you make throughout your career. So the first question that I really have is why medicine in the first place? I mean, an entrepreneur can go so many different routes, and you said that was a passion when you were younger. Yeah. So why choose medicine to pursue that?
Yeah. I mean, you can make money a lot of ways that do not involve years and decades of schooling and training and student loans, and the whole nine that goes into it. But for me, medicine was always my passion. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a Nigerian parent household where, my parents were immigrants from Nigeria. They came here. Nigeria in general really champions education. They are always pushing kids to be doctors and things of that nature. Luckily, I wanted to be a doctor. I was fortunate enough to see uncles, direct family members who were already physicians. And so it wasn't anything that was unattainable. And then luckily enough as well, I actually loved medicine. I loved science. I loved math. I knew from high school that I wanted to go into medical school. So once I was in college, it was all about determining what field of medicine. I was able to play sports, and playing sports, you have some injuries, et cetera. And so I met with an orthopedic surgeon just to treat my injuries. And I think the field of orthopedics was distinct as a young kid because I'd only seen the pediatrics, your general practitioners, things of that nature. But orthopedic surgeons were, in my opinion at that time, just happy. They were happy. They were satisfied. You had sports memorabilia all over their office. They were playing music. They were in decent shape. They all kind of had a similar vibe, if you will, versus some of my other doctors, if you will. They just were great, but they just didn't have the same vibe, And so that immediately drew me to the field of orthopedics even before starting college again. And then once I got into college, I was able to shadow mentors and things of that nature. And I actually saw the field and the medicine and the surgery and the practice. And from then on, it was just, hit the ground running. So for me, I loved medicine, even before I knew the type of, financial abilities it can afford you. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. You and I have a similar kind of outlook on why we chose to go the route that we did, because my field is really bad about long hours and overworking. We've talked with a lot of people who have come into our office to consider working with our team as a CPA, and they've talked about, like, with these bigger firms that are maybe a top 20 firm or a top 10 firm, how all these partners, they make a ton of money, but they're on wife number 4 and they never see their kids, and they're always in the office. And it's like, at the end of the day, I think a lot of the reason why I chose to go with a small to medium-sized firm was because of that. I grew up in the firm for a long time before becoming a partner, and growing up, I could see, okay, we're going to work long hours. And even you and I were chatting, and, you've got long weeks where you work a lot.
Yes.
But there is certain periods, at least, that you still get to live life. You still get to do the things that you want to do, and you're still happy. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how much money you make if you're either miserable or can't spend it. So
or can't spend that time and enjoy it with the loved ones that you have, So you're right.
Yeah. So one of the things that I hear, I think I heard it on a radio podcast, and I was really eager to hear your thoughts on this, because it was a radio show with orthopedic surgeons, and they were talking about how you kind of go through levels, because with orthopedics, like you mentioned, car accidents, that can be an extreme thing.
Yeah.
And what I've always heard is that when you have a surgery, it is going to change your body to an extent. It's just a matter of to what extent it does.
Correct.
So they were talking about how they do a lot of things to try to avoid surgery, and then surgery is kind of a last-ditch effort. So I know that's diving into specifically what you do, but I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts around how you approach a client maybe who's got a serious injury and trying to work through that.
Correct. And you hit it on the nail. We always try to avoid surgery at all costs. Conservative management or non-surgical treatment options are always what we recommend initially. That can be, for instance, again, I do hip and knee replacements. So if somebody comes in with really bad arthritis, they're a former athlete, they tore their ACL up, their knee is shot, I don't jump to doing a knee replacement. We start with taking normal medications, doing topical rubs, doing injections like steroids or PRP or gel injections, doing physical therapy, doing things that can just mitigate the pain and give you some relief of some sort. Now, once you've done that for a certain number of months to even years, everyone is going to have a little diminished effect from these medications, these treatments. And if they get to the point to where they don't work at all and you're absolutely miserable, you can't work, you can't pick up your child anymore, you can't walk to the bathroom without pain, well, then surgery is the option. And so, but we always do start with non-surgical treatment options, and that's a recommendation. Unless, again, you have a car accident and your bone is sticking out your skin. I can't say, hey, go walk that off. That's an indication 100% of the time, right?
Just give you a steroid pack. It'll be okay.
And a pat on the back, no. But after you've tried these non-surgical options, then we talk about surgery. And for us, a cut is a cure. We want to go in there. We want to operate. We want to make sure this is a one and done. So we really, really, really want to make sure we've done everything we can beforehand. So once we go in, we do the best we can. And most patients, which is, again, another reason why I love orthopedic surgery, most patients get better. 90 to 95% of patients. Mm-hmm. But there's always 5% of patients that there's something that goes wrong, or they just don't get quite better, or they're just not happy. And those patients stick with you, right? Because you want to help them as much as you can. So we try the best we can before then. But, once it's time, surgery is indicated, and people do great.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine that he's a twin, and his twin brother was in the Army growing up, and his brother's knees are just terrible.
Yeah.
He's just, the Army and other things growing up, he's just completely torn them up.
Yeah.
And I think he's around 34, 35, so he's a pretty young guy.
He's very young, yeah.
And he talked to a doctor, an orthopedic surgeon, about having a knee replacement, and they actually told him that they wanted him to wait a certain period of time because the typical life of a knee replacement only lasts so long.
Yeah.
And they were like, if by the time you're 75, if you're still going, then you'll be confined to a wheelchair because we can only do a knee replacement so many times, and it will only last you so long. So do you have kind of those harder conversations where it's more about mitigation because of a really long-term outlook that you have to have with patients?
I do have those conversations actually, and in general, we like to say knee replacements, hip replacements give you 20 to 30 years. So as you can imagine, someone that's 34, 20 to 30 years is going to be his 50s and 60s. I mean, just taking the average life expectancy in the United States, you're in the 70s and 80s, right? So that means it's going to wear out. You have to do another one. Now, the technology we have now, I will admit, makes that second surgery a bit easier than it used to be. And I do revision surgeries or second surgeries for people that their joints have worn out. And that second surgery may not last as long as the first one, but it still gives you a good several decades. So so that option is there, but you're right. You don't want to have 2, 3, 4 replacements because it's just the success rate goes down, down, and down, and down. And in those situations, I just have a honest conversation with people, like, can you live with this right now? Right? If they're like, oh, I can't run, I'm like, well, then stop running. But can you go to work? I can go to work. Okay, well, then live with it. If they're like, I can't get out of bed, I think that they need surgery, So for me, I look at where they are, even if they're 34. And I've operated on 30s. I've operated on people in their 20s, to be honest with you. It's just where you are and what you're doing and what you can tolerate. Because I don't believe a 30-year-old man should be bedbound when he has a baby at home and he has bills to pay. If I can get you a knee for 20 years, your quality of life is better for 20 years, I think that's a good choice. And then when you're 50, we'll face what we need to do at that time.
Yeah, and that's kind of the conversation that he had with his doctor, and they've chosen to kind of push that out because it's one of those things where he has limitations, but he can still function normally.
Exactly.
It does still bother him occasionally, like pretty bad, but it's not like every single day he's bedbound.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and we're in your field now, and you and I have had conversations about my field, so you may chuckle at me when I make this statement, but I think being a naive person who doesn't know a ton about medicine, one of the things that I think about is, oh, well, medicine advances so quickly that maybe in 15 years, the technology will just be completely different, and all of these answers of things that we're planning for with today's technology won't even be relevant in 15 to 20 years. Does medicine really advance that quickly? Is that a consideration that you have?
So medicine is always advancing, for sure. And there's always new technology. There's new innovation. There's new ways of doing things and schools of thought. However, most surgeons and most medical doctors, myself included, we don't change our practice unless it's evidence-based. And even with the evidence, we don't just take somebody that did great for a year. We look for long-term data. We look for people that have been doing great for 10 years, for 15 years. So even if something today is bright and shiny and hits the market, most surgeons, the overwhelming majority, 90% of them, are not going to change their practice for 15 years to make sure that this new shiny device or technology actually worked. Now, there's always early adopters, and those are the ones pushing it, but the most of our crowd, which I can say is a pro or a con, most of us won't change until we believe in it and it's been tried and true. So yeah, it can change quickly as far as the technology, but the adoption of that technology takes much longer.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like as a patient, I would appreciate a doctor who is very cautious with taking on anything new.
Yes.
And wants a lot of data to support it, because
Correct.
at the end of the day, if you're letting someone cut you open, even if it's like a knee replacement, there's all kinds of things that could happen. And
Correct.
like you said, I think you said 10% earlier, there's 10% where sometimes it doesn't matter if the doctor does everything right. It just
flawlessly.
Yeah, it just is a weird outcome.
Yeah.
I think that I heard someone say once, and give me your opinion on this, but that because human bodies are made up so differently, that it's not like you would see on like a chart where you just cut somebody open and everything's a different color and it's very easy to identify what everything is. That when you get into like somebody's leg, for instance, that their wiring could be completely different than
Correct.
a textbook. Is that kind of what it's like when you're doing surgery?
Every single patient is different. Every single patient, and the joke between orthopedic surgeons is that a joint replacement surgeon like myself, we only know 2 surgeries, a hip or a knee replacement. But the reality is, yes, it is the same steps to do this procedure, but every single anatomy is different. Their skin texture is different. Their muscle fibers are different. The orientation of their muscle fibers are different. Where their arteries and their nerves come in are different. Their bone morphology, the thickness of their bone is different. Like, everything is different. That's what I love about it. That's what keeps me excited about it. But you're right. Nothing is like that textbook, that colorful textbook that looks great and pristine and perfect. Nothing is like that. You have to go in there and you have to use every single ounce of your experience to know where you are, what you're doing. It's the right layer. Keep going, So they're different. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would appreciate that too if I were in medicine, because I like when somebody comes in and mine are not nearly as complex as the human body, but they'll come in and there's always, those few things that are slightly different, even if they're in the same industry or they have a lot of similarities. Yeah. And that's the fun part of it. It's like, okay, how can I make this one person optimal for what they're asking me to do?
Exactly.
So, one of the things that I really wanted to hear you talk about is kind of what we've talked about a little bit, which is maybe some of the newer technology in medicine, specifically in your field, that's coming out, whether it's like a new practice or a new piece of equipment or new medicine in general. What are some of the things that you kind of see on the horizon that you're really excited about?
Well, I mean, AI is what's big right now, and AI, artificial intelligence. I mean, it's a big umbrella for a lot of different things, but essentially, a lot of the artificial intelligence specific to orthopedics involve different implantable devices that go into the knee replacement or the hip replacement. It helps to keep us surgeons updated on what's going on with the patient without even seeing them. How many steps they're taking? Are they doing their therapy? Is there heat in that knee or that hip, which could be concerning for an infection? Is there something going on that we're not aware of, that because we haven't seen them for a few weeks? And it updates us like that, almost in real time immediately. And what those implantable devices are doing is helping to kind of take away that gap, if you will, between the patient and the surgeon with the multiple weeks or even months when they're at home recovering, so that we can find things earlier. And if we can discover things earlier, a lot of things can be corrected, before they get too far gone. The other things that are coming into the play as well are like these augmented reality goggles where you can kind of see the anatomy before you make an incision.
Like on an actual person?
On an actual person, yeah. And it helps because it helps you to prevent mistakes or prevent from, an anatomy that isn't normal from running into some type of, hiccup or whatnot. And then it also helps because it puts your implants or your different devices in the perfect way, in the perfect alignment. So that's pretty cool. And then the other thing that we just found out about that's not out yet, and it sounds scary, but there are robots that are starting to operate on their own. Now, I don't know how I feel about that yet. I've seen the videos where the surgeon is, in the back drinking his coffee, but there's prototypes. There's, they're out there. They go in there. The surgeon does what we call the approach, opens it up, and then allows the robot to do the rest. I don't know if that's going to be adopted for several decades.
Yeah.
Because, it could be, 10,000 patients that are successful, and then the one patient that they hit something accidentally, it'll completely, fall out of favor. So, but I've seen the videos; they exist. So, the thought is that it'll then give access to places that don't have that surgeon, right? If you have a highly subspecialized surgeon who does, brain surgery on Siamese twins, right? He may be only one guy in Harvard or up in Rush or somewhere in Mayo, right? But he can operate on a Siamese twin in Brazil or somewhere in Asia. So the thought is that it can increase access to this specialized care to other folks that would never get it. But I don't know. It's on the horizon. It's on the horizon.
Yeah, I could see that being a lot like, in the transportation space, a lot of people talk about, statistically speaking, you're like a crazy amount, like hundreds of times more likely to die in a car accident than you are in a plane accident.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But because plane accidents are like so largely publicized, if it ever happens, that all of a sudden people get scared.
Yeah.
And that's why they're so heavily regulated. And it sounds like it'd probably be the same thing with any type of robot doctor, with maybe it's the 1 in 10,000, and in regular doctors, maybe it's like 1 in 1,000. So it's like 10 times more frequent in a person than it is in a robot. Yeah. But because it's a robot and people have trust issues, all of a sudden it's this major issue and nobody wants to do it anymore, even though statistically speaking, the data would support a robot over a human.
That's true. It's just the emotional aspect of it won't allow it to, just take over like wildfire. But
yeah.
We'll see. I wouldn't mind being a part of that. So you know who you are, company. If you want me to join on, I do robotic surgery.
Yeah. You'll have to tell me about it if you ever do one of those, or even if you're ever in the room watching it. I would imagine that's a pretty unique experience.
Yeah, for sure.
So going back to the chips that you mentioned that kind of send data back, I think that's really interesting. Yeah. Is that something that we could put in our knees and then send that to the Garmin watch so that as we're prepping for our marathons, we can just track it in real time?
It is actually that exact process.
Yeah.
Where you implant a device on the stem of the actual implant, and it goes to some type of Apple Watch or mobile phone, and it lets you know exactly what's going on, your steps, everything that's going on. So that's exactly what's going on. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about the medicine side of things, but as you know, we're a business podcast.
Correct.
And your business is very unique. So let's dive into what you do on the business side. So you said you're in private practice.
Correct.
Kind of tell us what that means. With who do you work with? Do you do surgery in your home because that's private? Yeah. Tell us where you do your stuff and how that works.
So there's a lot of different nuances, but I would say in general, most people are aware of a hospital employed model. You go to Baylor, you have a doctor who is employed by Baylor. They will come in, they will do your procedure. They are paid by Baylor. You as the patient pay the Baylor system. Whether this doctor does 1,000 surgeries or does 5 surgeries, he's going to get paid by Baylor the same amount. Whether you pay Baylor or you don't pay Baylor, Baylor's still going to pay him. So he's employed. He's W-2, or she, excuse me then, and they are going to get their check. Private practice is, what we call eat what you kill.
Mm-hmm.
If you work, you make money. If you don't work, you don't make money. The difference is there is no ceiling. If you are very much so motivated and a go-getter, you can scale your practice higher than anyone. If you're not, then you're not going to make much money. And most people, clearly, based on the model, have the personality to want that ceiling. And so private practice, which I'm a part of, we don't work for one particular hospital. We can be credentialed at multiple hospital systems. We can do surgery on different days at different hospitals. We can have office space in different areas. But we essentially get the patient, bill the patient through our practice, and then provide the hospital with patients because they will also get a facility fee of some sort. And then in addition to that, you're not beholden to what the hospital wants you to do. But at the same time, you have to provide a level of, volume to the hospital so that the hospital can support you as well. Versus like the hospital employed model, they're going to provide everything for you. They're going to provide the first assist. They're going to provide your PAs, your nurse practitioners. They provide your staff, all of that. You on the private side have to provide that for yourself. That comes out of your overhead, if you will, but you have the autonomy to go to wherever you want. And then also the hospital employed model, typically they cannot buy into other ancillaries. I mentioned that before. That's like the physical therapy that's in the hospital. That's like the surgery center that's in the hospital. That's like the lab that's in the hospital. That's you getting your boot or your brace from the hospital. They can't buy into that, and therefore they can't receive any revenue from that. When you're on the private side, you can completely go and find out what's the best company, have that company in your office, and then get revenue from patients that use those products. So you're able to kind of scale your time in that same office and get more, if you will. But again, you have more risk because you bought the product, right? If I buy 1,000 boots today and I don't see 1,000 patients, I'm responsible for paying for those boots. So there's a little bit more risk. But again, if I sell all those boots because patients need it, right? Then you get the profit from that, which is another aspect of generating revenue that's outside of just the surgery. And then also with the private side of things, you can go in and even buy the land. You can own the real estate. You can own the real estate of a office building and rent those buildings out to other surgeons or other doctors, and they pay rent to you. So you can be your landlord in a sense. So it allows, not only lateral kind of movement, but also vertical movement as far as, your ability to scale your own self and your business. And then, as there's tax, benefits from it. You can expense things and write things off that you just can't as a W-2. And so I always knew I wanted to go the private side because one, I bet on myself. I feel like that I can do anything I want to do. And then two, I just like the autonomy of making those decisions for myself. And again, my particular group is multiple surgeons, so it's not like I'm just the only one. I do still have to talk to my other surgeons in the practice, and we have to make decisions, collectively. But I feel like that's a way better idea than letting the big hospital system tell me today, you know what, you can't use that boot anymore. Use this boot. I'm like, wow, I love this boot. Well, it costs too much for the hospital system, so use that one. So I didn't like being told what to do. So private practice gives you that autonomy.
Yeah. I got a lot of questions on all that. So the first one that comes to mind that I'm curious about, because I relate it to my field and I can be licensed within the state of Texas.
Correct.
And then that will translate to certain states. And then if it doesn't translate to a state, then I have to get licensed again in that state. And it's not quite as difficult, but there's certain boxes that have to be checked off. So with being able to operate within multiple locations here in the DFW area and maybe other places, I just know you work here in DFW, is it a difficult process to try to get authorization to operate within multiple systems? Is it an easy process? What is that like?
It's typically not difficult. It can take time, but that's again where your job as a private practice physician is to employ somebody that is in charge of that credentialing. So we have staff members that's all they do for all the surgeons at every different system, and all of us don't go to the same hospitals. We go to different ones. So you have one person that's in charge of getting you credentialed at these different hospitals. Typically, the requirements are all the same. You have a license that's in good standing. You have a DEA license to write medication. You don't have any outstanding, malpractice issues or issues with the law, things like that, right? And as long as those boxes are checked, you can go ahead and get credentialed. You just have to go through their committee's process, which could take a couple months or so. But so it's not difficult, but it can be time consuming.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then as a business person, you're still trying to grow. It's not just about being a successful surgeon. You
Correct.
also have this side of business as well. And you kind of touched on this, but I want you to expand on it. When you're trying to grow a business and you're trying to, add more to the top line and revenue, and then hopefully that translates to the bottom line, is that something where it's like, do you increase fees? Do you change services? Do you add more doctors? Like, how does a private practice typically expand and add more to the business?
I would say people have different philosophies on this. My philosophy personally is put the patient first.
Mm-hmm.
Patient care comes first, outcomes come first, right? If the patient is doing well, the patient is successful, the patient is happy, the patient feels safe, they're going to let their family know. They're going to let their coworkers know. They're going to let their community know. If more of those patients are happy, they're going to come back to you. That then generates more revenue to where you can then invest back into your actual business, right? You can then improve your technologies. You can invest in your staff. You can improve your workflow, which then again makes the patient's experience better, outcomes better, makes them happier, and helps them to continue to grow. I see it as like a positive feedback loop. And I personally think it starts with the patient, even if that means at the beginning spending money to take care of the patient and generating less net revenue or net profit, if you will, because you're putting more into the front end. But I think it all starts with the patient, because if you could be as thin as you want and not spend any money and at the beginning, bring home more cash. But if the patient's become unhappy, your reputation will be such that you don't take care of your patients. The outcomes are worse, et cetera. And so it's a long game. And I think it starts with focusing on the patient, in my opinion. Once you focus on the patient and more patients come and the revenue is increased, well, then, of course, you can start to kind of scale back on things. Well, did we really need that? No. Okay. Did we really need that? Yes. Okay. Well, let's keep this but limit that, as long as we're still getting the same quality of care, because you cannot jeopardize quality. You cannot jeopardize patient outcomes, because it will sink you. So I always just say you're better off spending more money at the beginning, increasing that quality, increasing that patient satisfaction, that patient experience, because it will generate wildfire and your reputation will continue to grow.
Have you seen, and it doesn't have to be, somebody you directly know, or even you don't have to mention names, but have you seen somebody go down that path of trying to get the dollar in the practice, and then they get this reputation, and then all of a sudden it just completely sinks their practice?
I don't know anyone personally, but I have heard. Mm-hmm. And again, where do I hear it from? Is the patients. The patients are like, this doctor was so money hungry, he would penny pinch and he would leave things here and there and he would jeopardize our experience, and we all just did not like it. And then you get the bad reviews and you get things of that nature. And then you start to hear from their staff. The staff doesn't feel comfortable, doesn't feel invested in. So, they were so focused on the dollar, they forgot about the people. Mm-hmm. and it sinks them. And I hear it all the time. I mean, I don't know anyone personally, but I've heard it, though. I've heard it.
When was it that you actually started getting some type of like business teachings within medical practice specifically? Like, did you have anything before you started working? Was it not until after you started working and were out of school?
Yeah, that is the most unique part of medicine, is we don't get anything business related until you decide to dive into it yourself. And I will say that I really didn't start understanding or really thinking about or realizing this large business space until I was in residency. And residency is essentially after college, after medical school. I've matched into as an orthopedic surgeon, and now I'm training to go out on my own.
And what age do you think you were around that time?
Probably about 28 to 30.
Which is pretty, for any other career, that's pretty old.
Yeah, it's late. I mean, it's late. And so where I'm learning, finally about even small things like, treasury bills and money market accounts and, you know, all this other stuff. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, I've been had that. Oh, yeah, I've been had the Roth. I'm like, what? You know, and it's a mixture of one, you know, again, my parents were immigrants here, so that's not, they don't have treasury bills in Nigeria, right? Their way of financial literacy is much different. So I didn't grow up with that. And then two, in medical school, there is no financial literacy. There is no financial classes. As of when I was there, I hope they've changed it, but there was just absolutely nothing. Yeah. And so you only start to learn when you're out and you're looking at your check and you're looking at where your 401k went and all this other stuff. And you're like, wait, what are other people doing? What's going on? You know, and then after that kind of switch came on and I knew I wanted to go into like private, that's when I then started reaching out to mentors and really learning about, you know, the business side of things. And there's a podcast, you know, shout out to your podcast, but there's one called White Coat Investor that, you know, a lot of people are familiar with. That he's very business minded. He teaches you a lot about the you know, financial literacy and then literacy and just in the medicine game as well. And then going into private practice, all my senior partners and everyone there, just sharks, you know, so just really just being a sponge and trying to learn. But if you don't have that internal drive, it's not given to you.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of what my heart is the podcast, just trying to put information out there for people. Yeah. And it's on their time, it's on their schedule, and they listen as attentively or not as they want, and they can either glean something or maybe it's white noise in the background. But either way, we're trying to put something out there. So we also talk about mentors a lot on the podcast. Is there somebody, one person or maybe a few people that were right there within that time frame of when you really needed it to try to start learning that really helped you along the way? And did you work with them? Was it somebody that you just knew through like a friend?
Well, I mean, I think my current senior partner, Dr. Tolson, is, you know, one of my mentors. He recruited me when I was in fellowship before I started, and he's always been a businessman, you know, even has his MBA, and been doing it for a while. You know, he's an early adopter. So I got a chance to see him and kind of pick his brain earlier on, and still continue to. And that's someone that, you know, I look up to, and I want to learn even more from him. But at the time when it kind of flipped for me, I think it was just like my peers that were on the same level. Like, hey, what's going on here? What are we doing? What is there to learn? And then that's when we started bouncing ideas off each other and literature and the podcast and things of that nature. But it wasn't until really I just got into this private practice that I've started learning things. And I'm still learning every day. Yeah. And some things I think you only can learn with experience and time and making mistakes.
Yeah. Well, I would assume that how your life has been and what you've talked about, that you're just naturally someone who is inquisitive and likes to learn. Yeah. So that doesn't really surprise me that, you know, you started getting a little bit of this knowledge base of what business/financial literacy is. Then all of a sudden you just, oh, that's cool. And that's cool. And then all of a sudden you're just learning more and more and more just because you enjoy the learning side of it. Yeah. So growing up here in the U.S., did your parents move here before you were born? And talk to me about that. Were there a lot of adjustments that you had to make with your household versus some of your peers' household growing up here?
Yeah, so both my parents came here when they were in college, and then they had myself and my siblings while we were here. So I was born here, but we frequently traveled, you know, once a year at least to go back home. But my dad, super educated, had like 3 masters, an MBA, a couple different masters. I think was supposed to go to law school. So again, just the Nigerian way, super educated, right? And growing up here, they pushed that education. They were learning kind of as we were learning, if you will. And the main thing I got from them was more of the work ethic. You know, it was like being busy is a privilege. You know, it's something that is exciting. You know, being able to work hard, being able to take care of things is a privilege. And my mom is always and has always been entrepreneurial. When she was back in Nigeria, she had like a store. When she moved here, she was a manager for a restaurant and then said, I don't want to work for anybody, and then became a complete entrepreneur and has her own catering company till today. You know, where she's catering weddings and conferences and graduations, and even some people's just household, weekly food. She still does. And once all of my siblings grew up and left the house, she actually converted our garage into an industrial kitchen with large pots the size of this room, with workers and with delivery vans and with the LLC and with, marketing and stuff like that. So I'm seeing this from her as I'm in college and in medical school. And that's always kind of been just something that I've always admired. So, we were born here, but my parents have always had that kind of grind to them. My dad was in the field of medicine. He was a nurse, but he worked overnight, of course, so that my mom could take care of us during the night and he could take care of us during the day, because it was 5 of us, a large Nigerian family. So I just saw that work ethic. I saw the work ethic, the grit, the entrepreneurial spirit, and it was something I've always just kind of been drawn towards.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I think it's easy for Americans to, this is the American way, and they just assume that this is how it is everywhere.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just that unsaid assumption a lot of times. And I go to these conferences that we're a part of within the CPA world, or maybe we're traveling with my wife and I meet all these people that are from all these different places, and life is completely different. Like its perspective is completely different from how they look at things. And it's really interesting that being busy is a privilege.
Yeah.
And I even think about that myself sometimes. It's like, okay, this is a challenging thing that I'm having to face because I'm a business owner, or, whatever it is that I'm doing. And maybe it's unfair that I'm having to deal with it. But then I remind myself that, business is not done the same way everywhere in the world that it is here in the U.S. And the fact that I even have the opportunity to do it is really special and unique. And I should appreciate it instead of maybe being frustrated, or maybe take a second and be frustrated, but then okay, I'm glad I can be frustrated about this.
Yeah.
Is Nigeria still a special place to you and your family? Do you invest a lot in that? Do you do things to give back to kind of your heritage?
Well, it's still a very special place. I will say that all of my mom's siblings eventually immigrated here. So all of my immediate aunts and uncles and first cousins are all here. Even my grandparents, they've recently passed away, but they were here and grew up with me the whole time. I've never not seen them. So everyone came here. Typically they go back and retire, or if someone passes away, then they'll go back. And then that'll take me back there, of course. But recently, now that I'm a lot older than I was before, I have wanted to invest back there. A couple of cities where my parents are from, there's an opportunity to invest in an airport. So I'm like, let's get the land. Let's start the infrastructure. And those are the type of things I want to do, because I want to have some type of legacy there. And eventually, of course, when my parents get older and want to retire, I want to be able to come back and see them ever so often, but also check on a business, not just kick my feet up. So I haven't done as much as I would like to, but that is definitely in the works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've mentioned, several of these little opportunities within the medicine space that you can invest and be a business owner in those unique aspects of medicine. Are there any of them that really pique your interest? Because you mentioned maybe investing in a business in Nigeria would be interesting, but are there any things of the things you've mentioned that would be interesting to you now within medicine?
Really, I would love to get into implants. I think implants are difficult at this moment because there's so many different companies and there's so many different ways to 3D print and do all this other stuff. But I would love to get into implants, because if there is an implant that is unique and is solving a problem that hasn't been solved before, I think it would just take off. And those are the type of, devices or investments that, can really set you up for, forever, including your kids and your kids' kids, because if it's a good implant, it's going to be used for the next 6-7 decades. So that's something I would want to get into. But again, there's just so many different opportunities now and different options. It's like, which one is going to hit, which one is going to be bad, and, end up on an infomercial that, hey, if you got this implant, then call us. So, it's still risk to it, but that's something I would like.
So you'd like to invest in a business that actually creates the implant?
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. In the tax space, manufacturing has a lot of pros right now. So maybe here in the next few years, you might have to look into it.
Exactly. I'm always keeping my eyes open for sure.
So why is the implant space so competitive? Is it because of, I don't know anything about this, so I'm asking genuine questions. Is it like ease of access to get into the space because a 3D printer is all you need? Is it just because there's so much money in it? Like, why is it?
I think because it's global. Like, implant companies aren't just in the United States. And there's a place in Indiana, Warsaw, Indiana, where a lot of the companies' headquarters are. But there's going to be implant companies from India, from China, from Europe, So and they are breaking into the U.S. market now. So it's like, it's not just you're worrying about your competition here, but it's everywhere. And I think that's what makes it difficult is like there's a new company popping up every single day, so it's just a lot of competition.
Yeah. I think it'd be interesting to look at maybe the finances behind it and see how they all work and how the big picture economics works, not just the little here in Dallas works.
Exactly.
Has there ever been a time where you've had that tug and pull that we talked about earlier, where this is what would be best for Brian's business career, this would be best for maybe a patient's care or the outcome of something that you're doing from the medical side, where you had to pick between the two and it was kind of difficult for you to do that?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, patient care always wins, and I will always put that first because it's just a human side of me. And again, I started going into medicine because I cared about people and cared about the medicine. But there's been several times where I'm like, man, we could have done a little bit better if we would have just did this, or if we would have changed this implant or changed this device or something of that nature. And at times it can add costs, especially to the patient. And patients will tell me like, hey, last time we did something, it cost me $200 less. And even something like $200, which is significant to some people, maybe not significant to others people, it can make or break someone's choice to go with this surgery or not. And so I always end up defaulting to, all right, well, we're going to make sure the patient's happy and go from there. But I know if I would have said, across the board, we're all doing this extra one, it's going to cost extra $200, then revenue could have been better. So, that tug is always there. But at the end of the day, I always just say, like, what's going to help this patient go ahead and get the procedure they need so they can get better.
Yeah. Would you describe it as kind of you go through the surgery or whatever it is that you're working with a patient on, and you do the best you can from there, but you just make sure the patient's taken care of, and then afterwards you kind of revisit for future things to say, okay, if we can still get the same great outcome, but we can do it in a more efficient way or use a different product or something that would still have the best service possible or best care possible, then let's just do it in the future.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, we've covered all these different things that you got into medicine, and now that you're in the business side and what your current life looks like. But what do you think the future looks like for you, Brian, with all this ahead of you? You're still a really young guy. Do you think you're just going to work forever? Or do you think you'll be investing, like you said, in the implant stuff down the road? What do you think?
Well, I do think I'm just hitting the ground running. I am busy, but I got a lot more in my tank. I'm not going to lie, So I feel like I can still do a lot more for a lot more people on the surgery side. So I still am not to my capacity. I don't go home exhausted. I still go home and go work out, So until I get to the point where every day I'm going home and I'm like, I'm beat, then I'll be like, okay, maybe I've maximized my physical capital, right? But yeah, outside of that, I do really want to get into the space of, again, not only implants, but technology, robotics. I do like the real estate side of things. I would love to get with, a hospital system and creating, what I consider a destination for hip and knee replacements, where the patient comes from wherever across the world. And I honestly do see this being something where people come from across the world, specifically here to Dallas or wherever I am. They come and get their hip or knee replacement. They stay in a state-of-the-art facility or hotel. They have concierge nursing coming to them. They get their physical therapy done at that time. They get all the rehab they need possible, all in this one setting, gourmet meals, entertainment. It's almost like a resort. And then they go back to where they are and they're back, living their life. And I would love to kind of partner with that, but on all sides of it, from the real estate to the land to the entertainment side of things, to the implant side of things, to like everything. I would love to like monopolize that type of field where ultimately the patient gets an amazing experience and does well, but enjoys it, because hip and knee replacements or any surgery can be very, very, very tough. But if you have that support system, if you have a good destination, you have a good surgeon, you have a good team, it can just make it so much more, easily digestible.
Why do you think you want to do such a large dream? Like, is there something specific that you think drives that?
Well, my uncle, so my father's dad, he has had multiple hip replacement procedures starting in Nigeria that didn't go well. And he's still limping. And this is dating back from when I was in college. So, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And and it's just seeing things like that where I'm like, man, if you would have had the opportunity to go somewhere and get it done right the first time and have a great experience, it would have been worth it. Because when people are in pain, they don't care about what money they have to spend. Mm-hmm. When people know they can go somewhere and get taken care of and not have to live years out debilitated, they'll do it. And I just want to give that opportunity to other people. I mean, we take advantage of it here because we're in a great area. We're in a great space. We're in a great metropolitan city. Everything's at our disposal, but everyone doesn't have that. And I think if that was available on such a grand level, then you can really take care of more people.
Yeah, I think that's really something to aspire to for everybody is to, whatever it is that you're doing, to try to continue to help people and just make the experience better for them. So let's wrap up with some fun stuff. So you mentioned going to the gym, and we've had a few people on here that are big gym advocates. I like to consider myself one myself. What is your favorite form of fitness? Why is it your favorite form of fitness? Does it have anything to do with this is why I like it because you're in medicine?
Well, yes. So resistance training, I like weights. I love weights. I'll do some cardio as well, but I like resistance training, weights, because one, it builds muscle. And, if you want to look at it from the aesthetic standpoint, muscle looks good. Your clothes look great, but even from a functional standpoint, you're stronger, you're powerful, you have more stamina. Of course, my job is very physically taxing. I'm standing up, I'm manipulating body parts, bones, muscles. We're moving patients. I'm using implants. I'm using, different devices that are not light. They're pretty heavy, so, but I'm very comfortable doing it because I feel strong. I'm in tune with my body. And then two, that muscle that you build is attached to your bone. And when the bone has that constant stress from that muscle building, the bone is getting stronger. And when your bone is stronger, you're less likely to injure it. I've never broken a bone.
Wow.
In my body, ever. And as we age, everybody as they age, your bones will get more brittle, you'll lose more muscle mass. But if you've built that earlier on, you maintain some of that muscle mass and you can have bones that are strong so that, when you're later on in your life and you have a small fall or you trip or whatever happens, you're not just completely shattering yourself. So it's healthy, it functions well, and you look good, and it's just really, really good for my mental as well.
Yeah.
I go out, I get in the gym, throw on some music, and just space out. Whatever happened that day, I'm chilling, I'm unwinding. So it helps in multiple aspects for sure.
Do you have a typical music that you like to listen to when you're in surgery? I've heard people talk about this before, and I feel like people laugh because of a doctor's choice.
I've seen multiple memes and videos on TikTok and Instagram about walking by an orthopedic surgeon's OR room, and mine definitely sounds like Sunday Funday. Yes.
Yeah.
My music is to the max. It's usually some type of hip hop of some sort. The bass is going, and within reason, right? Because you still have to be able to focus, but it's a fun environment because it's such a high stress environment. You want to do things that not only put yourself at ease, but your entire team. And keep in mind too, like when we're in surgery, we're laser focused. So half the time I don't even know what song is on. I just know it's in the background, and it's just the energy is there. So I'm not just like singing along and dancing, but it's just that energy, that calm, if you will, of that music, because it's the same music I lift weights to, So it just puts me in that mode. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Well, before we wrap up with the end, I know that my wife saw that you on social media try to put stuff out there, whether it's for funny purposes or just educational purposes, and I think that you have a great outlook on medicine in general. So talk to us about that, and then tell us how people can either follow you or just maybe get some tips and tricks on things that you put out there.
Well, it's interesting. I'm glad that it reached your wife, because my whole goal with social media is really to reach the masses, to educate, to demystify some of the medicine, to make it more again, digestible, make it less scary, if you will. I try to educate as much as I can, especially with orthopedic injuries, sports injuries, things of that nature, so that people don't feel like it's this black box that they don't know what's going on. I also remind people, though, that it's just a snapshot of what you see as far as my education or things of that nature. And I get multiple messages every day of somebody trying to help me diagnose what's going on, give them treatment options, give them a plan. And I always tell them the same thing, that there are so many different components for a doctor to legally give you a plan that I just can't. I need your x-rays. I need your history. I need to know what medications you're on. I need to know what your labs look like. I need to examine you. The way that your knee moves or your shoulder moves helps determine what I think may be going on. And so I try not to, I hope I don't offend people, but I tell them I can't give you an answer. My knee hurts when I do this. What do you think that is, doctor? I don't know. I educate with videos just from one standpoint of my vantage point, but for me to give you a real answer of what's going on, we need so much more, and we're trained that way. And I would hope you would want someone to take everything into account before they gave you a diagnosis, if you will. But yeah, my goal on social media is just to educate people and just to kind of make it more down to earth.
And where can they find you if they want to watch any of your videos?
Okay, well, good. Well, I'm on TikTok as a drbrian.ortho. So that's DOCTOR, Dr.Brian, BRIAN, ortho, ORTHO. So Dr.Brian Ortho. And then I'm on Instagram as just Dr. Brian. Again, doctor spelled out, DOCTOR. Brian, BRIAN. And then I'm also on Facebook because just Brian Nwannunu is my name.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great, Brian. We want to wrap up with the last question that we always ask the guests, which is geared towards entrepreneurs. So somebody who's considering being an entrepreneur or currently is, or maybe they just need a little advice along the way, what's the best advice you could give them as somebody who's pursuing entrepreneurship?
I would say don't chase shortcuts. Chase consistency. I would say that being an entrepreneur, just like being a doctor, it takes dedication, it takes time, it takes maturity. And that in itself, once you get to that point, will continue to compound on itself. if you try to do things the quick way, you're probably going to miss a lesson that you should have learned. And when you get to a position, you're not going to have that lesson and you're going to fail. So just don't chase those shortcuts. Really be consistent, really put in the work, really be a student of the game. Surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. Be quicker to listen than to speak. And ultimately, bet on yourself.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself.
That's really great, Brian.
Yeah.
We appreciate you coming on. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.